Hello and welcome to the Gentleman Scholars Club. Today we'll be talking about a vocabulary word you're likely to hear if you're shopping for a suit or a sport coat, and that is quarters, usually said within the phrase open quarters versus closed quarters. Taking a look at 4 jackets that I own today in order to get a sense of what quarters are, where they're located, and how they differ between the open and the closed form. Let's get started. The first jacket that I have is from the Italian menswear company Boggi Milano. It's part of a suit. It is a navy flannel window pane, and it's a bit tight as a jacket, but I will close it so that you can see what the quarters look like, where they're located, and so on. And as soon as I say that this is an Italian jacket, if you have any sense of quarters at all, if you have some pre-knowledge on that, you will surmise that it has open quarters, and you'd be right about that. So where are the quarters? Right here, below the buttoning point being the first button if you have a 2-button jacket, the middle button if you have a 3-roll 2 or a standard 3-button jacket. And the quarters would be operating off or flowing off of that buttoning point and occupying the 2 front lower panels of the jacket. I have thought to myself why they're called quarters. Since a quarter implies 1/4 of something, I'm assuming that each of these is 1/4 of the front of the jacket. This being a quarter, this being a quarter, and these being another 2 quarters. Or if you think of it another way, I guess this whole part could be a quarter of the jacket front and back. I've done some research and I have not been able to come up with why it's called they're called quarters. But I'm assuming it's something to do with that. However, the name nowadays just refers to these 2 panels right here. You can tell they're open quarters because they are cut away from the front, and cutaway, or even fly away, but generally cutaway, is a term that's also used to describe open quarters. They have this curving direction. The fabric moves away from the middle of the garment. You can see more trouser at below the buttoning point. Open quarters originated in the late 18th century when men sought to find a way to be more comfortable while riding horses. Their clothes were more substantial than we wear today, and if they had to mount and dismount the horse repeatedly, they had a saddle there, and so open quarters would help facilitate riding and mounting and dismounting. Obviously today, most of us don't do much riding, but I think you'll agree if you watch Jane Austen period films or just taking a look at the open quarters style or the style back in the 1800s, the early 1800s and late 1700s, you'll agree that open quarters enable a man to cut a dashing figure. And that's why they're still popular today. And perhaps why they're popular in Italian tailoring specifically. The Italians have a great sense of panache and how to look dashing in terms of menswear. So even though quarters originated in Great Britain, they mostly migrated to Italian tailoring. British tailoring tends to have closed quarters, which I'll show you toward the end of the video. But in particular, Neapolitan tailoring, so the tradition of Naples in southern Italy. And we'll take a look at a Neapolitan cut jacket right now. This is made to measure from Spier Mackay, not a strictly Neapolitan company, a Canadian company, but they strive to emulate the Neapolitan style in their Neapolitan cut jackets. And I think they succeed in conveying most of the elements of Southern Italian tailoring. And this, as you can also see, has open quarters. I haven't compared the 2, the Boggi and this one, to see which one is more open. I haven't looked in the mirror and done a side-by-side comparison. Maybe I will now with the video, but also quite open here. I think this one has a little bit less of a curve and kind of a truncated or angled bottom, if I'm not mistaken. So what do open quarters achieve besides enabling you to ride horses more easily? Well, for one thing, they lengthen the impression of your legs because you can see the trousers at a higher point. They make your legs seem longer. They give you that illusion, or they give that illusion to the viewer. Demographically speaking, Southern Italian men do tend to be shorter, so I wonder if that was kind of a motivation for originating that style, since tailoring is designed to balance out your bodily features and show you at your best. So if you do have shorter legs, open quarters will be an excellent way of elongating your profile. On the other hand, open quarters do risk showing the dreaded shirt triangle, which is this piece of fabric right here. Technically, according to a strict understanding of menswear rules or classic menswear, you should not show any shirt right here. And because open quarters are cut away at this point, there's a risk of exposing more shirt at this area. Or if you're wearing a tie, you'll see the bottom of the tie blade exposed when the jacket is closed. Again, the ideal is to have just your trousers showing and then your shirt showing up to this buttoning point. From the top down, shirt would end here. From the bottom up, the trousers would be visible. And there would not be any sort of mixing of the two at this point. As I am wearing high-rise trousers or higher-waisted or high-rise trousers, I don't think that you can see any shirt at this point. However, if you do wear lower trousers, mid-rise or God forbid low-rise trousers, you will see that shirting. So I would say high-rise trousers go along with open-quartered jackets, and I would recommend getting the two together. So if you dislike high-rise trousers, then perhaps don't go for open-quarter jackets. But you want to avoid that shirt triangle being exposed at that point. Open quarters also create a sense that your hips are wider. So if you have a large seat or if you have wide hips, again, I would steer away from open quarters because of that reason. On the other hand, if you have slim hips, open quarters help to direct the viewer's eyes outward because the fabric is sweeping in this direction and the eye of the viewer goes in the direction of the fabric essentially, so it creates an impression that your hips are wider. So you have slim hips, the wider impression created by open quarters helps to counterbalance your shoulder line. So that will be a recommendation. Always choose clothes that fit and flatter you in terms of your physical attributes. So depending on what areas you want to emphasize or de-emphasize, open quarters versus closed quarters. And take a look now at a closed quartered example. This is a Havana jacket from SuitSupply. SuitSupply, well known to most people for being a menswear conglomerate or large-scale operation with more than 100 stores worldwide and so on, perhaps also known for their controversial ads. But this is an open quarter jacket in their Havana style. And I think you can see the obvious difference right away. Right? There's much more fabric here. There's not as much of a curving away of the material, of the two panels, the two lower panels, and therefore more fabric is showing of the jacket running straight down the front. That straightness is a definition of closed quarters. As soon as you see curving and opening, obviously open quarters. What does this do in terms of your conformation or your physical attributes? It helps to lengthen your torso. So if you're really tall, you have really long legs, a closed quarter jacket will help to disguise that. It'll balance you and make your torso longer. The goal being to kind of even out your top and bottom. That's essentially the goal of a suit or of a sport coat and odd trousers, to even up your top and bottom to present you in a balanced and optimized way. So that will be a reason to choose closed quarters. Closed quarters also quite straight from the armpits down to the bottom. You essentially create a straight line. So if you do have wider hips, larger seat perhaps as well, the closed quarters can help to mitigate that. Open quarter jacket, as I said, looks longer. On the other hand, the closed quarters would make the jacket look shorter. Italian tailoring is already shorter than British tailoring in general. It will cover your seat, but it will appear shorter because of the flyaway front. Right? It appears that the jacket ends at the buttoning point, whereas with closed quarters, the jacket appears longer because the fabric continues way down. You don't have that opening to create this illusion. I tend to prefer open quarters in the summertime because it's kind of a playful style. It has more of that Italian vibe. I think the Italian association for me is, summer days, sunny and warm, a sunny and warm climate, and has sort of that panache and playfulness that you would associate with summer. Whereas The closed quarters are something that I would perhaps wear in winter, where having more fabric or the impression of that is desired, right? It's cold, so you want to show that you're wearing kind of more in terms of fabric and to get that impression across. However, I should clear up that there isn't really a distinctive line of this is open, this is closed. As in most things, there's a continuum or a spectrum, and the quarters can exist anywhere along that spectrum. It can be either rather open or rather closed, kind of like glass half empty and glass half full sort of thing. And this jacket here is a ring jacket sport coat. It represents what I consider a happy medium between the two. Thinking about Buddhism, the middle way being sort of the ideal. That's what I personally would recommend, something in between. So a real benefit of Japanese tailoring, or something that they really mastered, is the ability to synthesize the most significant elements of varying tailoring traditions, of various tailoring traditions. So in this case, Italian style jacket and being soft construction, natural shoulder, however, not as much of an open quarter look as you would see on the Neapolitan or the Southern Italian jackets. Right, the quarters here are slightly curving, but they're also slightly closed. So again, whether you look at it as glass half empty or glass half full, it exists in that middle ground. So I think that's sort of the best choice to fit most people in terms of their conformation or physical attributes. It occupies that middle ground and is an excellent choice for everyday wear or your most popular wear. And as I said earlier, perhaps closed quarters in the wintertime to give you that sense of having greater cloth, more cloth for cold weather, whereas the open quarter look gives you that fun Italian vibe and having on less cloth in the summertime. Those impressions going with the seasons. So I hope that was informative and useful to understand quarters and what they are, as well as what they look like. If you found it useful, please like the video and subscribe to us at Gentlemen Scholars Club for more information and style tips related to classic menswear. Thanks for viewing.